Hospitality Meets is brought to you by RotaCloud, the simple workforce management software for hospitality teams. RotaCloud lets you create and share rotas, record attendance, and manage your team's annual leave, all in less time than it takes to make a brew. It can also make life easier for your staff, allowing them to check their rotas, request holiday, and even pick up extra shifts, all through the RotaCloud mobile app. Start your 30-day free trial today by visiting rotacloud.com/Phil and find out how much easier managing your team can be. Welcome to Hospitality Meets with me, Phil Street, where each week we take a light-hearted look into the stories and individuals that make up the wonderful world of hospitality. Today's guest is Phil Andreopoulos, Chief Executive Officer of the awesome disruptive hotel brand YOTEL. Coming up on today's show, guest Phil gives his thoughts on host Phil's conversations capability.
I mean, all over the place.
Host Phil reveals one of his favourite things.
Staring out the window dreaming of gorillas.
And guest Phil makes a heartbreaking and shocking revelation.
Because I did read somewhere that last year in the UK, there were no Phils registered.
I mean, I don't know if I'll ever get over that, but all that and so much more as we chat through Phil's amazing journey so far. This chat is absolutely riddled with humour and wisdom, so please don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give us a like and a share wherever you can. Enjoy. And a huge Hospitality Meets welcome to Phil Andreopoulos.
Thanks very much. Hi Phil, how are you?
I'm alright, how are you?
Very well. Do we need different names for this?
I think we have to get there's elephants in the room when there's two Phils in play.
Yeah.
We've got to get them out of the way straight away.
Are you Philip when you're in trouble, or
only from the mum? Yes. Yeah, you're exactly right. And the middle name comes out then as well.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's
Which
when you're
is
really
John.
in trouble.
I don't think anybody knows that actually.
What's the middle name?
John.
John?
Yes, indeed. So Philip John Street is
PJ.
Is indeed, yeah. I don't know what to do with that. But the one, what was the one? Somebody said this to me actually. It was another Phil when I was starting out in my career, and I said, "I'm Phil." He said, "He's Phil," and he said to me, "I've never met a bad one." I was like, "Oh,
So what?
Yeah."
That's a good point. I'm trying to think.
Indeed, we don't need to talk about television personalities or anything
Oh
like that.
yeah.
There's
Hang on. There is one that
some interesting ones.
Yes, there is one. But we're a dying breed though, because I did read somewhere that last year in the UK there were no Phils registered, no christenings or births of Phils. I know.
Goodness.
The fight back starts here.
It does.
Let's get the campaign going.
Get the breeding campaign on the go from here and in. But in any case, well, we should probably tell the world who you are and what you do.
We've digressed already.
Yes, bodes well, doesn't it? Bodes well.
So, yes, I'm Phil Andreopoulos and I'm the CEO at YOTEL, which is a wonderful, small but mighty hotel chain. We're global, 23 operating hotels, just under 6,000 rooms. We were born out of aviation.
Okay.
So our founder was the founder of Sushi.
Yes, in fact, I was just talking about that with your colleague Izzy downstairs.
Right, well, so Simon Woodruff started up
Told you.
Sushi, and shortly afterwards he was upgraded on a flight and found himself in first class in a cabin that was small but perfectly formed. And he thought to himself, this is a great idea for a hotel concept. I've got everything that I need right around me in this seat, and I'm in a relatively compact space, and I've got nothing that I don't need. How does that translate to a hotel? And that's how the first YOTEL was born about 20 years ago.
My word.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so what we do is we have, it's like a first class aviation experience on the ground. You have a nice lounge where you can get really, really good quality food and beverage. You have a simple check-in process. We use self-check-in kiosks. You can check in under a minute, spend time in the lounge or go up to your room, which has a smart bed in it. So the rooms are compact. And when you walk in, the bed is folded up and you press a button and it unfolds and you get somewhere to sleep. And it's not the same size as a flat bed on an airplane. Obviously, it's a full-size bed.
Yeah.
But it does mean that your compact room feels much, much larger, and it's incredibly efficient to use, and it just takes up a bit less space.
Right.
And our guests absolutely love it. that's probably the best way to describe it to people. It's that first class aviation experience, but on the ground.
That's great. To this day, and I pride myself as somebody who knows quite a bit about the hotel industry. I've been in it for basically my whole career. I did not know the origin story of that. That's a really, really cool origin story.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it? So we have hotels in airports, airside and landside, with even more compact rooms, so that people that are on a layover and don't want to stretch out on the floor or try and find somewhere else to sleep can go and get some rest in between flights.
Right.
Which is also extremely popular with our customers.
Yeah. Could you get into putting some pods in some workplaces?
Do you know, it's interesting you should say
o'clock,
that. Do you know what? Interesting you should say that. I have a natural dip in the afternoon.
Likewise.
I tend to be quite productive in the morning, less so in the afternoon. I think a lot of people have a natural dip. I would love in our office to have a couple of sleep pods so I could get 20 minutes downtime in the afternoon.
That's all you need. The Spaniards know what they're doing. That's all I'm going to say.
They certainly do. I think any more than sort of 20 or 30 minutes, then I'm a bit groggy afterwards. But there's that sort of sweet spot, the 20-minute power nap.
Yeah.
So in all seriousness, we do have some sleep pods, which are smaller than the cabins. They're just like a capsule that you get into. And we are looking to expand that at the moment. We're talking to a number of different airports about having sleep pods. And I don't see why we wouldn't put them in office buildings as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on board 100% already. Sleep is my absolute favourite thing in the world as well. We were talking before we turned the microphone on as well around like that pattern of the day is different for everyone. And whilst with you, I have that 3 p.m. slump. I actually then re-energize, and about between 5 o'clock and kind of 9 o'clock, I have monumental creative energy, which I've learned over the years. So that's the time for me when I do my problem solving and I do any creative work that I want to do, just because I'm in that space at the time.
Right.
But I wonder how many people actually take the time to recognize the energies that they have across the day.
I think one of the things that I've learned over the years is that as you progress in life and in your career, getting to know yourself is a really important skill. It's something to pay attention to. And I don't think I realized that for a long time.
Yeah.
And it does, when you think about it, it does form, it can help form a lot of decision making that you might want to do. I try and schedule my day like you. I'm creative in the morning from about 5 a.m. till about midday. I'm at my productivity peak. So I know that if I want to get things done in an efficient way, my best thinking happens in those times. And I've got the added benefit of there being less email traffic at that time of the morning, so I can have that kind of undivided attention to the things that I'm trying to do. It's also good because we have hotels in Asia, so I can speak to my colleagues over there at that time, which is great. But I do try and avoid scheduling anything that's going to take up too much brain power in the afternoon, because I know that I'm not going to be as effective, and I know that I'll get frustrated with myself because I can't get it done. And I sort of sit there thinking, well, if I'd done this morning, I would have been able to do it. So having that understanding of yourself does help you to structure your day. But deeper than that, we have different relationships with different people that we work with and interact with. And I'm all for good, healthy debate and kind of constructive dialogue and, all this the good challenge. You have to have a bit of friction at work in a positive way, so that you bring out the best in each other. But we'll all have an example of people that we can have healthy debate with and it stays healthy. And there'll be some people that for some reason they can rub us up the wrong way. And having the time to kind of pause and think, well, why is it that person does that to me? What is it about me and what is it about them? As opposed to another person I might work with, and we have great conversation and a bit of pushback here and there, and it's all very constructive. So why am I constructive with that person and not constructive with that person? Is it all them, or is it all me, or is it a bit of both? And I think understanding yourself is so important to being able to work that out. And one of the things that I realized thinking about all of this is that really we all interact with the world in a very, very different way to each other.
Yeah.
And I think you can group some people together if you want to, and I'm sure that there are people that have done a lot more work and research into this than I have, but anecdotally and on a sort of functional day-to-day basis, we all need to be aware of what it is about other people that sends us off in one direction or another, and try and question why that is.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I mean, that is ultimately how a healthy culture is built, right? It's this was really made apparent to me. I took a new role last year. I now work in the world of tech, which if you'd have told me 5 years ago I'd be doing that, I'd have laughed in your face. But here we are. And I report into a guy who's a tech developer, and his brain works in a very different way from mine. Right. I am a creative energy, yellow energy, fluffy, conversationalist, and he's very technical, data, and all of that. And initially there was a period whereby it was a culture shock to be reporting into somebody who thought that way. But as you say, you learn that actually there's a reason why that can be a really brilliant thing in business and in culture building, because you don't want an echo chamber of the same types of individuals, the same energies. You need that coming together. And I suppose the key thing from the leadership perspective is then how do you ensure that that remains a positive thing rather than it goes into the wrong direction?
Well, definitely. And I think a lot of people, perhaps too many people, get comfortable in making the easy choice to hire people that are like them, because it can be easier to work with a bunch of people that think like you and act like you, and to a certain extent maybe even look like you, and that's not a good way to build a team. But with a team of diverse people who think differently and act differently to you, that comes with its own set of challenges, because you have to think more broadly about how do we get this diverse group of people to all rub along nicely together, and to have enough friction that's healthy, and how do we get the best decision making out of this group of people without causing World War III along the way? Well, because we all want to come to work and have some harmony, and for it not to be an unpleasant place. And so it's an important balancing act, building the right team constructed of complementary types of person who can still work nicely together, and you've got a functional, happy place to be.
Yeah. We
spend a lot of time at work, and I really feel strongly that it's got to be fun.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why I took this role, which I've been in for just over 6 months now, I spent nearly 25 years in a big corporate, which was great, and we were very good to each other, me and that company. But for a number of reasons, I just wasn't having that much fun anymore. And so when I started here, I wanted to make sure that we were successful and we met all of our business goals, but it should also be fun along the way.
Yeah. Well, it's probably more sustainable if it is.
Yeah, I agree.
In the long run.
Absolutely.
Because then people are less likely to ask the question of why am I here? If I can have fun here and be driving something forward and all of these things, then the questions they're asking themselves are usually around how do I make myself better?
Right.
Rather than how do I get out of here?
Yeah, and it's a balancing act. Obviously, the fun side of things, I mean, having fun at work and having an interesting job that gives you purpose and fulfills you is very important. You've still got to make money. In the society that we operate, you've still got to make money, otherwise...
Yeah, damn it.
Yeah, I know. And, we have to look after our customers, our guests. We have to look after our people, and we have to look after the owners of our hotels. And whilst we need, I think whilst we all need to have that comfortable place to work, we do have to push ourselves along the way too. And sometimes that isn't so much fun, but as long as on balance we're having a fulfilling time at work and enjoying ourselves, I think that's what's important.
Yeah, and also I think uncomfortableness has to be part of the journey. Mm-hmm. The path of least resistance is shiny and attractive, but the path of most resistance is actually where the more shiny things exist.
Right.
I just made that up, by the way.
It's perfect. It's absolutely true. And I think one of the ways that I like to work is, and one of the things that I think I could do quite well, is I can create in my mind a very clear picture of where I want us to be as a company and what that looks like. And having spent my whole career in this industry, it comes quite naturally to me to be able to see where we want to get to and to really be able to visualize it. And then taking that vision and being able to explain it to people, to share that vision. And if it's an exciting place that we're aiming to get to, and if you can get everybody to share that excitement and also realize that it's achievable and then to see how you get there, even if it's not that easy to get there, but you know you can do it, then how cool is that? I think that's the thing that motivates me. It's having a clear picture of where we want to get to, knowing we can get there, having an idea of how that's going to work, and then setting off and working it out.
Yeah.
And you can plan and you can build lots of pretty PowerPoint slides about how you're going to get there, but until you actually start out on the journey, you really don't know what you're going to encounter, and you have to be flexible enough. But if you still know where you want to get to and you've got that vision in mind and you've got enough know-how to get there and you've got a good team to help you navigate along the way and to carry some of the load, then you'll definitely get there. And I think having people buy into that is key to making sure you actually arrive.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that companies sometimes fail to do to their detriment is to get everyone to buy in to what that destination is and share the vision that it is possible to actually get there. So one of the things we've been doing at YOTEL is trying to be very, very transparent with as much as we can be with everybody that works here and with our owner cohort about what our vision is for the next 5 years and how we intend to achieve that vision.
Yeah, but I mean, trust is built in that transparent space, right?
Yeah.
I'm just going to keep knocking the cliches out of the park here, but it's true. And I have another saying that I carry with me, which is the importance of communication in that, and you know, that honesty around whatever is going on is such a valuable piece of information for anybody to have. You can't just be communicating the rosy things. You have to communicate everything. Yeah. And if you don't, then you know the silence is where trust goes to die. That's the other one. That's the last one I'll give you today.
But people make it, if you leave silence, if you leave gaps, people fill them in.
Yeah.
And you don't always have the ability to control how people fill in the gaps. So communicating what's going on gives people clarity. We've just done a deal with Hilton.
Indeed.
Which I think is a good example.
We should probably talk about that.
Yeah, we should. It's probably a good example, actually. So when I started, I knew that I wanted to scale the business. And we knew that we had this fantastic brand, right? YOTEL, 20 years old, punches way above its weight in terms of aided and unaided brand recognition. When we look at the search terms on Google, people are searching for YOTEL by name quite a lot. So it's punching way above its weight. And I knew I wanted to get the business to scale, more units, diversifying a bit into new markets, doing more franchise deals. But one of the things that was identified early on as holding us back was the power of our distribution, which was actually very, very good for a company of our size. But I realized early on that we kind of needed to affiliate with one of the big brands in order to really put jet fuel into that distribution power. So we went through this process and talked to all the people you'd expect us to talk to, you know, the bigger brands, about coming into some sort of arrangement with them, a collaboration. I always wanted to make sure that we kept our own identity through all of that. I didn't want us to be acquired because we'll get onto that in a minute. I do worry for some of these small brands that get acquired by the bigger brands, but like I said, we could talk about that. So I knew where I wanted us to go, and we communicated that widely amongst the team. So everybody knew, the whole company here at YOTEL knew that we were out talking to different potential partners. But obviously you're bound by confidentiality. We were in confidential negotiations with a short list, a long list that then became a short list and then became a very short list. And it was quite an interesting, to the things we were just discussing, it was quite an interesting case study really, because there was only so much that I could tell the wider team. A, because of the confidentiality issues, but B, because I was still negotiating and I didn't know exactly what it was going to look like.
Where you were going, yeah.
So, and then of course we had a bunch of owners who are really important stakeholders and who are by and large amazing people to work with, who also are very interested in what's going to happen because ultimately it impacts the value of their assets, something which we're all very conscious of. But obviously I couldn't tell them much either. So the approach that we decided to take was just to talk in themes. This is why we're doing this. This is what we're hoping to achieve. And this is how I'm going about it. And this is where I am in the process. And I was very honest with the team. I said at the beginning, when we were in initial conversations, I gave us about a 40% chance of success because I wasn't going to take an arrangement, a deal that didn't deliver all the things that all of my stakeholders wanted it to be delivered.
Right.
And then as we were going on, at one point, I think I gave it about a 20% chance of success, and I was maybe a bit too honest with some of the team. But as it progressed, I was able to say, look, do you know what? I think we're going to get this over the line. Unless something turns up that we haven't seen or some sort of legal issue, we got to sort of 80, 90%, and then you could feel the levels of anticipation rise amongst the team, and then I was able to start sharing a little bit more about the structure of the deal that we were getting towards. And then, of course, we signed with Hilton middle of last month, and we were able to, for the first time, to officially talk about who it was, because before then we were bound by confidentiality. We couldn't say who it was. Mm. But it was 5 months of a process where the outcome has a material impact on people's the value of their assets, their lives at work, our customers. There's an impact on all of the people that are loyal YOTEL customers who love us and we love back.
Yeah.
And yet there was 5 months where we couldn't really say very much. And so to bring people along on that journey and keep people motivated without really being able to go into detail was quite an interesting challenge.
For sure.
And then thankfully we were able to reach a good place with Hilton. And I'm so proud of the team because they've all, through all of this, the whole team at YOTEL have kept themselves together, been extremely professional, been focusing on the business, continuing to drive the business. And the direction was, there's a chance we're not going to do a deal. So you've got to keep focusing on all the things that are important to us, driving direct business through our own website, looking after our customers, looking after our people, making sure our owners are happy. So they were doing all of that, knowing that something fairly transformational was happening on the sidelines. And then as soon as we were able to announce, they've just pivoted very, very quickly to, right, let's work on integration and what the world looks like in the future, while still maintaining a focus on driving business into our hotels.
Yeah.
So it's quite remarkable, really, and I'm really proud of the way that the team has rallied around. It's been great.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of flies in the face of everything we just discussed around being transparent, right? Because there was only so much that you could say.
But I think to a point, you can trust people that they will understand more than perhaps you're able to say.
Yeah.
And it goes back to being able to communicate what the vision is and to be clear and transparent and say, YOTEL's a great company. Now to make it even better, we are going to need to focus on these things. And that means we're going to need to do an affiliation arrangement with somebody.
Yeah.
And I think once people understand the benefits and the necessity, and then they're bought in, and then they're along on the journey. Yeah.
I think the other thing I find fascinating about that is that point around there's question marks. None of the guys, including yourself, right, would have known in that moment. You said yourself went down to about 20% probability at one point. And that creates the question marks around, is that going to work? But actually by creating the culture of business as usual, until we kind of tell you differently, at least you can then keep moving forward, whatever the outcome of that would have been.
Right. One of the things that I'm always trying to compartmentalize in my mind is thinking like my stakeholders. I've got to think like our guests, I've got to think like our crew, and I've got to think like our owners. And it helps me a lot to pause and whatever it is we're dealing with, try and get a picture in my mind of what that important stakeholder group would think, how they would view it, what does the world look like through that filter. And it helps to inform us on so much of what we do. Mm. Because without our customers, we've got no business. Without our crew, we can't run our hotels. And without our owners, there wouldn't be any hotels. Yeah. So we are all in this we are all in this together. And yet sometimes there are slightly different opinions on what the right way to go forwards is. And as the CEO, I feel like it's my role to help guide the company in a way that keeps everybody happy whilst making sure that we're still making our numbers.
Yeah.
And it's a bit of a tightrope sometimes.
But that's also an inevitable part of that role, right?
Right.
You've been hired for a reason.
Right.
And keeping all of these stakeholders happy is part of the job, right? I mean, that I suppose wouldn't change in any sector, in any environment where there is a CEO who is dealing with multiple stakeholders. Right. It's just you learn how to do that over time, I guess.
And one of the interesting things about our business and our industry is the broad range of different people that you get to deal with. When I think about our owner profile, the people that own the assets that we run our hotels in, we have a very, very diverse range of ownership groups, from funds through to high net worth individuals, through to collaborations of pension and other types of funds. And plus they have their own lenders, the banks that are leveraging them. So there are differences of opinion even within our ownership community, which is very, very diverse. And it's fascinating to see how hospitality real estate assets have become, I think, more accessible, perhaps more mainstream to different investor classes that maybe previously would have only looked at resi or office or something else. But hotels, I think, were seen as very, very, I suppose they were seen as a bit of a different asset class, and now a bit more mainstream. And so we have money coming in that is not used to the very, very cyclical nature of our industry. And so that's always quite an interesting challenge to have when you're dealing with the money coming from different places. And then I think about the diversity of our people, and I couldn't tell you of another industry that I can think of which is so global and so diverse in terms of the people that work there. And then I think of our guest profile, and that's also pretty diverse. People look at YOTEL and they assume that our main demographic of traveller is sort of in their late 20s, early 30s. Well, actually, we're a bit older than that.
I was going to say, if you've got 20 years of legacy.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. We are actually at the kind of widest demographic for us is between 34 and 45. Right. And then we're pretty even on either side of that, younger and older. So we're very diverse, very diverse. We have a hotel in Istanbul airport, and they get something like 80 million journeys happening through that airport every year. It's huge.
Right.
And we get some of them staying in our hotel, and they're from all four corners of the world, from every different background you can imagine. And it's fascinating. It's one of the reasons why I love our industry so much.
Yeah, I could not agree more. And also, I think that the interesting thing for me as well is around that stakeholder management is all about. It's also taking them on a journey, right? Especially if you have multiple stakeholders with different opinions as to what should be happening next. It comes back to that clarity of vision ultimately,
right?
And being able to take them on the journey as well as your crew.
Yeah, and I think having a strong brand and a strong culture, and then a strong vision of where you're going to go to, just gives people confidence. Gives people confidence that they're in the right place, whether they're working here or whether they're staying in one of our hotels or whether they've got one of our hotels in their assets. I just want all of our stakeholders to just feel that they're in the right place and that they're safe and secure in whatever it is they're doing. Their money's safe, their asset, is safe. They're safe when they're traveling, and they're happy and safe when they're working.
Yeah, absolutely. We've kind of done this the wrong way around. Normally we'd go into the devil in the detail around what you're doing now at the end, but I'm not fussy when it comes to that. But what I would love to learn a little bit about is your journey to this point, because this is your first CEO appointment.
It is, yeah.
So there's things that I'd love to discuss around that, which we'll get to in due course. But I wonder if you could give us a kind of a flying tour of your career in hospitality, and how did you even get into the industry in the first place?
Yeah. Well, I'm a lifer, so at about...
I should do that because I'm a lifer too. Yeah.
For the benefit of the listeners, that was a fist bump.
It was, yeah.
So I'm not even sure if this is legal, but I was about 14, I think.
It was then, probably.
It probably was.
Yeah,
probably
I think we're much the same generation. So, you did what you needed to do, right?
That's it. And I had a friend at school, and his dad owned and ran a restaurant, and I needed some money, and so I started to wash the pots and pans. And after a while, I was promoted to plates and glasses, which I was very proud about.
That's a big step up.
Big step up. But I loved the vibe of that restaurant, and it was a great place to be. The waiting staff were all a lot of fun. The kitchen brigade were all nuts, as you can imagine, and also a lot of fun. And for a young lad who was getting a bit fed up of school, it was a great place to be, and I really enjoyed it. And I convinced at some point, I must have been, I don't know, I was working, a couple of evenings a week just for pocket money, and it was great. And at some point, I think I realised that chefs are quite cool. And so I convinced the head chef, who, looking back, was just a lawsuit waiting to happen.
There would have been many in that era.
Yeah.
It would have been that case.
Absolutely. Anyway, I convinced him to sort of let me cross over from the pot wash to the sort of other side, the main side of the kitchen. And in evenings and weekends after school, I learnt to chef. And then when I finished school, I'd moved to another restaurant. My chefing career was progressing, and I was really enjoying it. The hours were a bit of a killer, but I loved the camaraderie in the kitchen, and I think I'm a bit of a creative at heart as well. I quite like the artistic side of it too. Anyway, I was driving to work one day. Somebody crashed into the back of my car. They were going too fast. I was stationary, so it was quite an impact, and I damaged my neck. And so I was a bit stuck, because chefing is obviously quite a physical thing.
Yeah.
And if you've damaged your neck in a car accident, you can't really go back to work for a little while.
Crikey, yeah.
And I was just fortunate with the timing. It was July, and my mum, bless her, said to me, well, if you can't work, how about going to university? Which is not something that I had really considered. So I made a couple of calls and went to and got accepted into Brighton University to do a degree in management, specialising with hotels, or hospitality management, I think it was called.
Right. So a bit more general, away from just kitchen-y things.
But that was the sliding doors moment.
Yeah.
Because having gone from someone who was very kitchen-focused, I then opened the door to the whole world of hospitality management, and I got myself a degree, which is something that I never thought I'd get round to, and that was great. And I actually, having got quite bored of academic study at school, I actually found my way at university and progressed very well academically, and it was really, really good. Did a sandwich year, did a gap year, worked at a hotel on Grosvenor Square, which was then known as the Britannia Grosvenor Square. I think it's now the Biltmore.
Okay.
Yeah, so I worked there for a year in my sandwich year, and I had a great time, and they were wonderful. They put me through I did every single department in the whole hotel. They really, really took it seriously, my placement year. I went from running the pub that they had, which they no longer have in that hotel, to working in banqueting and front office and doing a bit of housekeeping, the whole lot.
Yep.
Had a great year, really enjoyed it. And that's when I knew that it was going to be hotels for me all the way. So then, when I graduated, I got this summer job over the summer at uni, working on music festivals, doing sort of backstage support, which was basically humping around big crates of alcohol for all the artists to drink before and after they went on stage. And I really enjoyed it. I worked at Reading.
Sounds like a cool job.
It was great. I worked at Reading Festival and Leeds Festival and one called Phoenix and a few others. It was really good, great summer work. Anyway, when I graduated, I thought, well, this is what I'm going to do. And I worked for the summer, and I noticed that all the smart people were kind of talking to the tour managers about going on tour with bands to provide on-the-road support, because of course when the summer ended, all the festivals ended, and I didn't have any, and there was no more work.
Yeah.
So it was at that point that I kind of thought I better get serious, and I sort of moved from working these big events to a hotel career, and I took it from there. The other thing I did, which was which was also really like instrumental in my career, was while I was at university, I was broke and I was working for a conference placement, like a venue finding company, a conference placement agency down where I was at university. And they gave me a really, really good insight into kind of how the sort of sales and marketing of events works. And I kind of worked there. I got that job because I needed the money, but actually it was really instrumental in kind of helping me understand how event management's supposed to work and how venue finding works. It's called the Conference People. I'll give them a plug. I think they're still going.
Right.
But they were very, very kind to me, and I had a really good couple of years there while I was studying. And the sort of mixture of that and then working these big music festivals in the summers gave me a love for event management and the commercial side of the business. And I kind of went from there, and that was it. Went into hotels and ended up at Marriott, ran global sales for Europe, and then transitioned to take on, to sort of set up the franchise organization for Europe. At the time, Marriott had a good franchising presence, but it wasn't massive, and we saw it as a growth area. Yeah, I was ready to take the risk in something that was not quite there and create what a franchise organization would look like. Obviously, we did it very, very well in the States, so I was able to take some learnings from that. And so, I ended up as Chief Operating Officer for part of our business across Europe, Middle East, and Africa over time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's when you say it in the space of 5 minutes, it sounds like a meteoric rise, right? But there's
quite a lot of hard work in the middle.
Yeah, it went from washing glasses, and then I was CEO of this multinational organization.
And then the commercial background really helped me, because when I was done with the COO role, my last role at Marriott was the Chief Commercial Officer for EMEA, which was also great. It got me back into the sort of commercial functions, which is brilliant. But I think one of the things that I really enjoyed during my time was growing that franchise business, working with our development team. I think one of the best development teams in the business. We were able to grow the franchise estate from, I think it was about 50 or 55 hotels in 2014, and I think when I left, it was something like 700 or 800.
Oh, wow.
Open and operating.
Wow.
The development team at Marriott are a machine. They're really good. And I think probably Hilton and Marriott have the best developers in the business.
Yeah.
And being a part of that was great. And I learned a lot about that. I learned a lot from so many different people at Marriott. It really was a wonderful career. I spent a couple of fantastic years in Jordan, as country director of sales and marketing in a wonderful country. Had a great time there for a couple of years. Yeah, I packed a lot in 25 years. I don't want to bore your listeners with my whole life story.
They won't be bored. I can guarantee it. I mean, this is the thing I love about the conversations that I have on the show, is that there is no right or wrong way to build a career, right? There is,
right.
And I think a lot of people would really identify themselves in your journey at the beginning as well, especially around not necessarily that interested in school. I hear that a lot on the show. And actually what I really love about your journey is, I mean, I don't love the fact that you were in a car accident, but the byproduct of something, and actually I heard your language as you were saying that. You said something along the lines of the positive thing about that was, or something like that. And I remember thinking, oh, you're obviously a natural optimist. You're a positive person. Because even in a moment of, where you basically your whole kind of life has been turned upside down, because that was your plan at that point in time, you were able to pivot fairly easily into something else. But also the academia, going to university when you've not been that particularly tuned in at school, usually it's the school thing is because it's too general, too wide. But actually most people, when they find the thing that really ignites them, can probably find that they knuckle down.
Definitely,
and they can get on with it.
I am proof of that. And I've got two sons, and I'm in that magical year this year where one is about to do his GCSEs and the other one's about to do his A levels. So
would we call it magical?
Yeah. Well, it's magical because it's going to be one like one hard slog and then it's done.
Yeah, right.
But what I would say is their attitude to learning, and I think their whole like generation's attitude to learning is so different. I mean, I remember GCSEs being a thing. I don't remember really them being that important. But full credit to the education system that these boys are in now. They are actually enjoying their studying. They might not like me. They might not like me for saying it, and they might disagree. But my reference point is what I was like compared to what they are like. And if they weren't enjoying it, then they wouldn't be doing it in the way that they are.
Yeah.
And they're not unique. They're not unique. There's that whole cohort seems to have a very, very different attitude to education. I think the education system is infinitely better probably than when we were going through it.
Right.
Because I can just see that they're just churning out a different class of people to what we were like at that age.
Yeah, that's really interesting to hear actually, because that's probably, I would imagine, not a lot of people's, it's not even experience, but their perception of the education system is that it's getting progressively worse. I hear that all the time. But actually, what you're saying is that might be the opposite.
Seriously, Phil, I think anyone of our generation that looks back to what it was like at school when we were there and compares it, and I'm talking state school here, my kids are in state school, I was in a state school, comparing today what it's like to what it was like when we were there, I mean, come on, everyone's got to be honest, it's night and day.
Yeah, well, that's good to hear. That's good to hear. Our kids have a chance.
Yeah, well, I hope so, because it is. I also think it's way more competitive.
Yeah.
And this is another thing about our industry, and I mean no disrespect by this, and I hope people don't take this the wrong way. I have got friends, I don't know, who should we pick on? I've got friends who are in different industries, the medical profession, law, and it is so competitive. There are people from the top universities, and they are fighting it out at the top firms. People I know in finance, they're working themselves to the bone. It's so competitive and it's cutthroat. And then I look at our industry, and it has always confused me in this country why we don't attract the same talent that is drawn towards these other industries.
Yeah.
Because the rewards are there. I mean, our industry is a great place to be. I would challenge any other industry to compare itself to ours in terms of bonding amongst teams, in terms of enjoying yourselves at work, in terms of purpose and value and feeling like you're actually contributing something and something tangible that people can actually go and enjoy. And people are traveling on business, they need somewhere to stay. I mean, it's a fantastic industry.
Yeah.
And I am living proof that it can't be that competitive if I've managed to get all the way that I've got to. Imagine if I was in a big law firm, I wouldn't last 5 minutes.
I wouldn't add humility to your list of traits.
And do you know what? I wouldn't even want to be there. I really wouldn't.
Yeah.
And I think that's the other thing about our industry. If people come into our industry and they want to succeed and they've got the right mindset and they're able to put in the effort, then you can go a long way and you can travel the world.
Yeah.
And you can go and run hotels or be a part of hotel companies or anything in the travel sector anywhere in the world.
Absolutely.
My job has taken me, I mean, all over the place. We were developing hotels in Africa, and I wanted Marriott to get into the safari lodge business, which was something that we had not done before. So I got to open with a wonderful franchise partner a lodge on the edge of the Masai Mara. And one of the highlights of my career.
Yeah.
We were on a development trip in Rwanda, looking at doing some lodge developments in Rwanda. I got to go on a day off, I got to go and have a look at the gorillas and do the gorilla trekking, which was a remarkable experience that I would not have had if I was reading a legal contract in a fancy glass office somewhere in the city.
Indeed, yes. Staring out the window, dreaming of gorillas.
Probably.
Yeah, which is a sentence I never thought I'd say on this show.
It sounds like I'm having a terrible go at the lawyers, doesn't it? Doesn't it? That's maybe that's
unnecessary evil.
That's some like deep-rooted PTSD coming out. They're wonderful people, really.
Yes, I agree 100%. But do you know, I also love the comment you made around the bonds that you build in this industry. I think that's a really unique point to this industry. I have this debate with my wife all the time around her background is actually performing arts, but then went into financial services. And she's got no friends. I'm just going to leave it there. From her time in financial services, it was very clinical, the relationships at work. It was almost like you go in, you work hard, you do an excellent job, but you kind of, maybe you go for a pint occasionally after work, and then everybody goes home and you rinse and repeat. Whereas I look at the people that are in my friendship network, and I have literally got friends all over the world, just from being in this industry, and obviously being a really good guy as well.
Yeah, of course.
Probably part of that as well. But you obviously got the brief about this show as well, because you were like, I didn't even have to guide you there around why should somebody come into this industry. You've nailed many reasons as to why. I think this is another reason why this show exists, is for exactly that. I don't think that narrative gets out enough around what this industry really is. We work hard, yes, we do work long hours, there's pressure, all of those things, but there's all of those things everywhere else too.
Absolutely. You try in financial services, you try and work a 9 to 5 day at busy times. It's not going to happen. Try and be a doctor and work sensible hours, social hours. I mean, I think everybody that wants to succeed in a career has to be prepared that you're going to have to work a few long hours here and there.
Yeah.
But that's part of the sacrifice, and with the sacrifice comes the reward.
Yeah.
But it's not all like that. I think the other good thing about our industry is that it is also very accessible for people that don't want to have like a massive career and don't want to work the long hours.
Yeah.
They want to be a bit more flexible. Then that's available too, right? I think I'm making it sound like everybody has to come in and strive to rule the world. Well, that's not everyone's built that way, and I think that's the good thing about our industry too. Is it is very, very flexible.
Yeah.
Which is why it pains me a little bit that in the UK at least it's we're having a bit of a tough time at the moment because the business rates are all over the place. The increase in employer national insurance has had a massive impact, and I'm not talking specifically about YOTEL or hotels. I'm talking about the whole of hospitality in the UK.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I read somewhere that over the next year it's expected that 15% of hospitality venues are going to close or be at risk of closure because of increased cost to the business. And energy costs are already high, and that is before you factor in anything coming out of the Middle East conflicts that are ongoing. And it does feel like successive governments have just taken the industry for granted and are intending to sort of milk it for what they can, which is completely counterproductive because people stop hiring, businesses stop hiring, businesses stop investing in renovating, the quality of the product goes down. It's an uncomfortable spiral.
It's baffling.
It is absolutely baffling. And look, I would encourage. And now we haven't even got onto the holiday tax. All I would say on that is I would encourage everybody to go to the UK hospitality website and just take a look, because there's some great analysis on there about what's happening to our industry and the burden that's being placed on different businesses, and there's something that people can do about it. They can go to that website and find out how to talk to their MP, because we need to get much more visibility. And to be fair to UK hospitality, they are trying very hard and doing a good job at getting visibility, but we all need to be doing a little bit more there.
Agreed. It's very difficult to get traction if it's not being listened to. That's the way that it feels the moment that we find ourselves in. But the only way we can get them to listen is by continually banging the drum, louder, wider, for longer. And maybe then they'll start to listen.
Oh, I hope so.
But yeah, I'm very conscious of time, but there's one more question I would love to ask you, and it's really just about the future. We did touch upon, obviously, this kind of game-changing partnership in which you've gone into with Hilton. what does that really mean for the future of YOTEL, and what are the plans?
Well, there are...
What can you reveal?
I think I can reveal quite a lot. Well, look, Hilton has got near enough 250 million Hilton Honors members. So that's 250 million potential eyeballs on the YOTEL brand, which some of them would have been there before, for sure, but quite a lot of them probably don't know the brand. So we're going to increase our brand awareness massively, which I think is a fantastic thing. So the customer base in our existing hotels will alter slightly. We think that the Hilton Honors members will probably have a slightly longer length of stay than our traditional YOTEL guests. And there are many corporate accounts that Hilton deal with that we don't have. There are a whole bunch of different segments that are going to be coming into our hotels. So it's good news for our existing hotels, much more awareness, much more use. For our desire to grow our footprint, I think it's fantastic news for hotel owners and developers because they have the power of the Hilton distribution system, and yet they get all of the great stuff that you get by being a YOTEL owner. So we are a relatively small and a approachable bunch of people. We're good to work with.
Can vouch for that, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Endorsement. That's going on our website. And working with a big brand is not for everybody. They have a wonderful group of brands at Hilton, and they have great relationships with their owners. But there are some owners that will prefer to work with a smaller boutique company. And there are some owners that will just see the YOTEL product and see that we can get a lot of keys on a relatively small footprint, and they'll see our profit margins and raise an eyebrow and think, wow, I want one of them. So it'll help with our growth. So existing hotels get traction, top line and bottom line. It'll help with our growth. Our existing customers get to keep staying in the YOTEL that they love because we haven't been acquired. We are fiercely independent. We're in charge of our own brand standards. So it's good news for our existing customers. It's good news for Hilton customers. They get to experience something new. And for our crew, as we grow, we're going to continue to give them all of those opportunities to go and work in different places. Obviously, the company's going to grow. There's going to be opportunities for our people to progress. So look, hopefully it's good news for everybody. Come and ask me in a couple of years. We'll have to do a part 2 of this, and
pleasure. Yeah, pleasure.
We can compare the amount of grey hair and stress lines.
I'll take a ruler measurement before I leave the building. But no, look, there's so much more I'd love to talk to you about. Maybe the part 2 is the way to do that. We'll do that in 6 months even. I don't know, but a really wonderful journey so far. I'd say you're obviously 6 months into your role here. Yeah. A really wonderful journey at the beginning for you here as well, but it seems like you're on the start of something really quite potentially spectacular, which is wonderful. I think the brand, I've been in my life for, as we discussed as well, the brand is a brand I've been familiar with for so long. 20 years of legacy is not to be sniffed at. You don't do that by accident, I think, and continually growing in that time, and it's just been a real pleasure to sit here and listen to your journey and where you're going. Thanks, Phil. Really nice to spend the time with you, and look forward to catching up again sometime soon. Very good. Excellent. Thank you very much. And there we have it. A cracking story from Phil. From washing pots to leading one of hospitality's most disruptive hotel brands, a brilliant conversation on people, culture, communication, and why this industry still has bags of magic in it. We will, of course, be back next week with another awesome journey from hospitality, so have yourselves a cracking week, and I'll see you then.